old-fashioned telephone?
I am.
When you did that, the tiny dog in my lap sat up, all confused.
Well, that's what my sound effects are for, to confuse tiny lap dogs
Yep.
around the world. Welcome to 5 Words.
The podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
What if we spoke like that in real life?
Welcome. I'm Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Sean.
Welcome to 5 Words, the podcast.
But not just that, just if it was like, someone was like, hey, how do I get to the, Q train?
Well, honestly, you just take the 7.
And then get off
and
no.
Get a cab.
No, you're not even listening to how I'm saying talk, where we like finish each other's things.
Oh, I thought you were just talking about tone of voice.
But tone of voice, yeah, I mean, I feel like we kind of do talk. People do talk like that.
A little bit.
In real life.
A little bit.
But
it's like your telephone voice, which makes sense because you made a telephone ringing noise at the start.
There you go. Telephone voice.
Sean, can you tell new listeners what this podcast is about?
If you're just now getting on board with the phenomenon that is 5 Words, and you haven't had this explained to you by one of our legion of fan members, one of the legends, as we call them, this is a podcast where we have a guest come on. They give us 5 words, random words from a story based on what we know about the guest. We tell them what we think the story is, which we are never right. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to admit right now.
Wow. Changing tropes.
Just absolutely never right. But that's because it's hard to guess.
Yeah, one day we'll get it.
And then they tell us the real story. And then we discuss, because everyone's got a story. Things happen to us. Everything is a story.
This is very true.
Because life itself is a story being watched. We are Netflix.
Yeah.
For gods or some superior being.
Well, I like
that's why aliens.
That's
why aliens haven't visited us. They're too busy watching.
What?
Yeah. Earth is just a streaming platform.
Oh, alien. We're Netflix to aliens.
I'd like to think we're HBO now, at least.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Some of us are Hulu. I'm cool with that.
Well, I tell you what, our guest is like his own Amazon Prime.
That is true.
Yeah.
And I was about to say that I like this intro for him specifically because everybody does have a story, and this episode it just goes all over the place. Not only is his 5-word story amazing, but his life story is incredible.
Yeah.
And I just really enjoyed this episode. It was really different, and I'm excited for you guys to hear it.
Like the guest himself, it is deep, frantic, frenetic,
funny, full of tears,
and ultimately just purely human.
Yes.
John F. O'Donnell is the guest.
John F. O'Donnell, or J-Fod, as many will call him.
Or J. Francis O'Donnell, as no one's ever called him, but I think in an alternate reality, the novelist,
as we discuss,
version of him would go by. But yeah, J-Fod's an old friend, great comic. He's got a lot to talk about. Just go ahead and listen.
Yes, absolutely. And check out his specials. We talk about where you can find him more at the end of this episode. But Sean, where are you going to be this week?
Colorado. On the 27th, which is a Thursday, you and I are in Fort Collins, and then on Leap Day Saturday, the 29th.
Yep, we'll be at the Chief Theater in Steamboat Springs, Colorado.
Yeah.
So come check us both out there. We're very excited. And then just check out J-Fod and enjoy the episode.
But also remember, but don't forget, 54 Below.
Oh, yes.
April 23rd.
The only thing that I promote ever.
Caitlin show called Death Wish with a band and a musical director and Broadway people.
I finished probably what will be the final script. I mean, there's always some tweaking, but I'm very excited about this iteration a lot. So please come watch. Go get tickets, 54below.com/Caitlin-Cook.
But before that, if you're in Colorado and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be.
That's true. If you're in Colorado.
New York in April. Yeah. Well, Steamboat Springs, 29th, Chief Theater.
Yeah, and Fort Collins.
Boom.
Bye-bye.
Wee.
Are you
a very flirtatious whale.
That is not bad, but I feel like that's what an alien spaceship landing would sound like.
Mm-hmm. Sean lately has been starting the podcast with just a random sound that I then try to identify.
Speaking of random sounds, that's a great way to introduce. We like to bring our guest in right away. The one, the only, John F. O'Donnell.
Yeah, man.
Jonathan. John is not short for Jonathan, or is it?
It's not. No.
It's just John. Right?
It's just John. I got that H.
Fitzgerald.
No, it's actually Francesca.
It is. John Francesco O'Donnell III.
Yeah. Wait, what does the F stand for?
Francis, baby. Francis
I was about
all
to say
day
Francis,
long.
no way, but then it is.
I've embraced it. I love the Francis.
Yeah,
middle name.
that name is very presidential. John Francis O'Donnell.
Yeah, I'm J-Fod. He was JFK. I'm like one letter better.
You were. It's funny how many people, and myself included, have you saved in the phone as J-Fod.
Yeah.
And how many more? Going back, if you could go back to the day before you started doing stand-up, would you have signed up on that first open mic sheet as J. Francis O'Donnell?
No.
Because that also has a nice ring to it.
Yeah.
J. Francis O'Donnell.
J. Francis O'Donnell? No.
Yeah.
But I
if
feel
he was
like
a book writer, I feel like that's
that'd be a
the
book
move.
writer. I feel like
I like how you guys
Book writer.
Book writer.
Well, there's so many kinds of writers.
I mean,
I like that feels like it's written on a printed novel. Is what I meant.
magazine an article typer.
Not a blogger.
the fact that we didn't say author, you said book writer, but then I was like, yeah, book writer.
Book writer. Didn't say author.
Yeah.
Didn't say
When it came out
novelist.
of my mouth, I was like, that doesn't sound
But
right.
I immediately confirmed it without it. Yeah, they're called book writers.
Yeah,
right?
book writers. I mean, that's technically what they do.
Yeah.
You know, like a football thrower. That's a quarterback, but they throw footballs.
Okay,
But yeah, J-Fod, that nickname is apparently, I'm pretty sure that Baron Vaughn came up with the nickname.
Baron Vaughn. No, Baron
Yeah.
Vaughn did.
Yeah.
I remember the discussion. Baron Vaughn, Okay, so history.
Yeah.
So Johnny, I got to tell the tale. I got to tell the story.
Well, you got to tell him. Are you going to start with the history of the first time?
I've got to tell the story of the first time.
You got to.
So I meet.
Does Caitlin know this?
I don't know.
No.
I don't know. So
Because I tell people this story too.
It was a good
fucking
meeting.
hilarious.
So Johnny, Johnny was the third comedian who I'm still friends with, who is still doing comedy, that I met in New York in 2007 when I moved
The
here.
first one was Dan St. Germain.
First one was Mike Lawrence and Dan St. Germain simultaneously.
Okay.
So that's 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And then Johnny was the third.
Yeah.
Like I met Johnny in this fashion.
Okay.
There used to be a show at a venue in Union Hall, which I do not remember the name of the venue.
D-Lounge.
D-Lounge. Okay, it was on like 15th maybe?
Yeah, right by Union Square.
Yeah, it does.
Union Square.
Yeah.
Not Union Hall.
Union Square.
Yeah.
Wait, I thought you were laughing at the name D-Lounge because now that is a name that's like, is it D-Lounge? Either a bunch of douchebags in there or just where you can go to get some D. And that could be anything. Dick, dim sum.
Yeah.
Anything that starts with a D. A dichotomy. But there was a show there called Sweet Paprika on Friday nights.
Good name.
Yeah, it was a good show. It's also where a lot of people I still know I met there. But it was a good show, and it was a Friday night show, and it was free if you were a comedian. And at the time, I think I'd been in New York maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I didn't fucking know anyone in the comedy world. I was doing shitty open mics where you had to pay $5 to go on, or you didn't have to pay, but you'd have to wait 75 minutes
Yes.
minimum before they'd even go, hey, you're up in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So I go to this show. I'm hanging out afterwards. I look over, and there's this, this woman, right? I'm talking like she had very beautiful, long, kind of flowing auburn hair, and she was like I like them, short and thick, tight booty, big thick, but was dressed sort of like you could tell just very like I don't know. From the back, she just seemed fun. I was like, you know what? I'm alone. I don't know anyone. This chick's pretty hot from the back. Whatever. And I went over, and basically, like, as I'm walking over, that chick turns around, and it's Johnny. Right? It's John.
With a mustache.
And John at the time had long hair and a Fu Manchu.
Oh my God, I need pictures.
Oh, there are pictures.
It's almost like it was like a sketch, like some cheesy man on the street
Dude,
sort of like comedy thing where it's like, oh, look at how hot that girl is. It's a guy.
And
you know?
and
Wait, this is how you met Chesley too.
No. Chesley emailed me.
Right, but you thought Chesley was a girl.
Well, because
From the name.
His name's Chesley Calloway, and he emails like a 19-year-old girl.
Okay. Yeah,
He corresponds like a freshman college girl. But no, the part I'm leaving out because I was trying to be nice about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say. You left out the
because there was also the thought where I'm like, oh man, this chick's kind of nitty gritty. I bet she's down to fuck.
Yeah, the way that I tell it is, I'm like, yeah, Sean saw me from behind and thought that I was a girl who wasn't like super attractive, but was hot enough, but would clearly let him fuck me.
Would put out like this chick puts out. She's at this show. It's late.
This stocky bitch will get down with me.
She'll hang out with me.
So what did?
I'm a 4. She's a 5, maybe. I'm
going make this happen.
naming up. Yeah.
What was the interaction?
I think it was just like, oh, hey, man. Like, I just immediately was like, hey, what's up? And I think I introduced myself. I think that was it.
Because I really remember the first time that we interacted was at the Duplex. At the Christopher Street.
Which is hilariously enough, following in the theme of this, is a primarily gay.
Oh yeah.
The
gayest of the gay.
Wait, so when
Christopher Street. You performing from a rainbow flag.
When did you tell Johnny that you thought he was a lady?
You didn't tell me this story for a long time.
Like a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, wait.
Yeah.
It was like, I mean, it's like you wait till you become like, okay, we're definitely friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, because I got something to tell you.
Yeah.
We met there. And at the Duplex, that used to be a great show there.
Yeah.
That was always a fun show to do.
Yeah.
But I remember it was there where I was like not venting to you, but just kind of being like, New York's hard, man. Like I haven't, like all these mics suck. This one's the only one I like. But all the rest of them are fucking bullshit, man. Like this is really, whew. And I'd been at that point like a month maybe. Yeah. And Johnny was like, no, I rephrased that. At that point, I know factually, it was like 3 months in. Yeah. Because I hadn't seen you. I know I hadn't seen you since Sweet Paprika. But it was like when I saw you, I was like, oh, I remember him. He's the girl I thought I could fuck.
Since I broke your heart.
Yeah. And, right? And I remember that night, the show was primarily, like, it was good. Like, everyone was really good. It was a good audience, and it was an open mic. Mm-hmm. And it was run by, and I do not remember her name, but she was a former contestant, and I believe winner of The Biggest Loser.
Yes, Poppy Kramer.
Poppy Kramer.
You know, she passed away.
She passed?
She passed away a couple years ago.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Poppy.
Yeah, she was the sweetest
She
ever.
was awesome.
She was so cool. She would bartend while emceeing the show, and she had a kind of separate mic on a little stand. They would run that thing, and she ran that mic so well.
Oh, it was great.
She did a thing that was so smart that she would, the first time that someone, all you had to do was no cover, but you had to buy one drink. Fair enough.
Yeah, that's way better than a cover.
Yeah, and she did a thing where the first time that you went, you had to bring one person. Then after that, it wasn't a bringer. So that, like, she told me once, she's like, that put a little bit like of like a crazy filter on it, where the person would have to be sane enough that they would be able to get one person
friend.
to come one time.
Friend, yeah.
You know what I mean? And some great comics rolled through there. I mean, the thing I'll never forget is that Hannibal Buress was there all the time. You know what I mean? Which was so wild.
Yeah, you know who I said, now I feel bad about this, but I remember I completely lied about the one friend thing. Because it wasn't until I got there
that you knew,
that I was like, oh, you're supposed to bring one friend. So what I did was when I was going to buy my drinks, I bought 2. And I was like, my friend is like outside smoking a cigarette, but I bought 2 drinks. So she was like, okay, whatever.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
So I just had house 2 fucking beers.
She still bought another drink.
Like, when I met Hannibal,
I was
gorgeous
like,
flowing locks.
Everybody back in 2007 had gorgeous locks and wore tight jeans from the back.
I look back at some of those pictures of me. I was like, what was I thinking?
You weren't thinking. That's what.
I was like, how did I think that this was going to work?
You were trying to, you thought, you know what it was? It's that you have so much personality that you oftentimes let it blind you to your actual physical stature. And you were like, well, since I am Thor, I should look like Thor.
Yeah. Well, that's It's like, I'm not the tallest knife in the drawer. But
I'm the sharpest.
I'm the sharpest.
And the most mustached. What other knives have a mustache?
But I'm kind of like, oh, maybe if I like don't like bring it up that I'm short, no one will ever notice. You know what I mean?
Dude, I'm not even fucking lying to you.
It's kind of
You
a thing.
don't notice how short you are until you point it out. Your personality does add a few inches.
I like
and
that.
a few pounds.
Yeah. Also, yeah, I was.
You aren't fat.
I was chubbier than I am now, for sure. Maybe not then, but like in between.
No.
Oh, that's a whale telling you you're fatter than you think you are.
That's the
the skeptical whale.
That's a skeptical seal. No, but we were at the Duplex. So this was like, I was like 3 months into living in New York, and by this point, I had just been like beaten down by all these shitty fucking mics. I mean, I'm talking like I can't even remember Otto's Shrunken Head.
Oh, yeah, that place is
places
rough.
like that, and even like the Parkside back then.
Parkside is rough, yeah. I feel like the Parkside Lounge looks like it should be the dopest venue. Totally separate back room. It's a cool dive bar on the Lower East Side, but like it's the place where like last shows go to die.
Now the shows there are pretty good.
Oh, cool! It's
I
come back around.
I did
finally?
a show called Nervous Laughter there, and it was fucking great. It was the only time I'd ever seen that place full.
Really?
And it was great.
And
So
the
it's-
laughs were kind of popping. And
coming
stuff?
back around.
It used to like the room used to
Was
kind of
Cross
somehow
on that show?
suffocate
Yeah.
laughter. What's that?
So David Cross was on that show, so I
Yeah.
figured it would be.
He's pretty good at comedy.
He's pretty damn good. But
Sorry, what were you
also,
saying?
I mean, what were some of those? Like, I remember the Pit had a great mic, but it didn't start till like
And
midnight.
you only got 2.5 minutes. At the time, now it's like standard operating procedure that these kids are getting 2.5, maybe 3 minutes at mics. But the standard used to be 5, and I remember the Pit was the only one that was 2.5.
I'm glad you dropped Sean's album title name, by the way. Thanks for the
my
plug.
first album, Standard Operating Procedure.
Oh yeah.
Don't listen to that one. Listen to the better one, my most recent one, Scuttlebutt.
Also, the first one's good too. Listen to it after the
Scuttlebutt's
fact.
better. But thank you. But also, no, I remember at the Duplex, you were like, "Hey, man," and this is what I appreciate about you. There's an honesty because I'm bitching to you about all this before the show starts. Then the show starts. Then you see me have a pretty good set, and then afterward, you're like, "Hey, man, come to the Creek in the Cave next week in Long Island City." And I remember you said Long Island City, and this is what has forever fucked that neighborhood over because it's across the river. It's closer to Manhattan than most of Brooklyn, where everyone wants to live. But because it's in a neighborhood called Long Island City, you assume like,
You're
so
like,
what?
you want
like
this kid to come out to Long Island? You want me to go out to Long Island?
What,
Yeah.
a 2-hour train
Yeah,
ride?
yeah.
And it's like, no, it'll take about 15 minutes.
It's just north of Greenpoint.
yeah.
You know, it's the most southern neighborhood in Queens.
But that was my introduction to the Creek in the Cave.
dude,
Was
that's
you.
so cool.
Was an open mic, you and Timmy Williams of the Whitest Kids You Know fame. They ran an open mic called Kingdom of Heaven.
That was fun times, man.
And that was where I met everyone.
yeah.
That was where like everyone was hanging out. The shows were good. There was an audience, and you had the comedian of merit, which
Yeah.
was someone closed it out with a 20-minute set. And the first time I did it, it was Barron.
Oh,
first time I
that's
went-
so
that's-
cool.
and that's where I
Baron
met
Vaughn
Baron.
did it.
Yeah.
I forget everybody that did, but I remember some of them.
Everyone did it.
Kumail did it. Jesselnick did it. I
Yeah.
think Schumer did it. I'm pretty sure. It's crazy.
Everyone did.
You know?
Everyone
yeah,
did. It was fucking fantastic.
Did you get to do it?
Yes, I did it on Halloween that year.
Oh, nice. Oh, dude, I just remember. Do you remember that you would guest host with me when Timmy wasn't around, and we did that weird thing where I would dress up as Jesus F. Christ
Oh, good.
with my long hair, and Timmy was Altar Boy Timmy,
And
and then
then-
you were the devil.
Yeah.
And you were like a Jamaican.
No. There was a bit we did where
Because I would write these sketches.
Johnny. So Johnny and Timmy would host as Altar Boy Timmy and
Jesus F. Christ.
dressed up. So when Timmy was out of town being on television,
Yeah.
I would guest host, and I had this red Adidas jumpsuit that
I haven't thought about this in so
that I
long.
would wear, and I remember the bit was you would begrudgingly, as Jesus F. Christ, introduce me, Satan, as this like I don't want to do it, but we can only have entities hosting this, and Timmy's not an angel yet, but he will be one day. Do you remember that? I was like, Timmy's not an angel yet, but he will be.
Wow, you got a good memory. dude.
So Satan, and I remember I came out like, "Me ready to host the open mic with you, Jesus," and you were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Me talking to you," and you're like, "Stop talking like that." I'm like, "This how me talk. This how I always talk." Me from Kingston, and I'm sure now people would find this horrifically offensive.
Yeah.
But the whole bit was to make you say, and you were like, "You don't fucking talk," and then I would be like, "Ha! I did it. I made Jesus Christ.
Oh,
I
yeah,
made
yeah.
Jesus F. Christ say fuck."
Yeah.
And
That
then you
is the
had to
thing.
bring up whatever comedian I wanted you to bring up first.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, we had a whole routine worked out.
Yeah, we did. Because
of course, I would always be like, first comedian, Richard Pryor. And you go, Richard Pryor's dead. I'm like, bring him back. You said you could do.
Oh,
you
that's hilarious.
It was like.
Did we write scripts for this?
We talked about it in that little back room beforehand.
Yeah.
Rolled with it.
Because it was funny with Timmy, because Timmy was like, yeah, I want to start getting into stand-up. I was like, I want to start a show. So we walked around trying to figure out where we were going to start it. It was either going to be in his neighborhood in Greenpoint. I was living in LIC at the time. We were kind of like leaning towards Greenpoint because it was more of a neighborhood people knew about.
Right.
But then we found that spot, and there was just a black box theater just hanging out right over the bridge in Long Island City, Queens.
Crazy.
Because they were trying to use the space for like straight theater, like legitimate theater shows.
Yeah.
And I think here and there they were putting on some productions, but I guess it was like, and then they were trying to do music, but the soundproofing was off, and so they were getting all these complaints. And so
I remember Rebecca telling me about that.
So then we came in.
That's how it started. Whenever people think about New York comedy in the past decade, someone brings up the Creek and the Cave.
Yeah.
Well, we all created like a scene there, and it was fun. You know, it was.
But you and Timmy were the two that like kind of filtered us all towards that. Like none of us would have ever thought to go there, and then you guys and Rebecca at the time was just like, "Fuck yeah, let's do it."
Yeah,
she was so like, I love comedy. Sure, get in here.
Yeah, but also it was her in a lot of ways being introduced to the comedy industry.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And so many people have kind of come along and helped develop that. I mean, when Donald Glover and all the Derek dudes came in and started doing stand-up there, that was huge.
That was huge.
But before that, then there actually was that first expansion of when instead of it just being the Wednesday night, like, you know, me and Rebecca had a conversation that extended and curated a whole bunch of shows, and that's when like Mark Norman and Matt Ruby started doing their show there and stuff like that. Was it called We're All Friends Here? We're
All Friends Here, but also that's where they also started a show that everyone does now, the
Sticker Treat.
Sticker Treat.
Oh, Sticker Treat.
And also you started
51st
Jokes. By the way, if you're listening to this right now, and you live in one of the, I don't know, a dozen cities that does a 51st Jokes every year, pass around a fucking John F. O'Donnell collection bucket.
No, Sean,
you should totally.
But I am on top of it. I've just sort of let it lapse a little bit because I was in D.C. and I've lost my mind intermittently over the years.
Sure, that happens.
But I, all I have to do is reach out to my friends who are the co-producers in most of these scenes, like that, and you know, and then basically the standing deal we've always had is that if they make enough money, they just get me a plane flight sometime later in the year to come do some shows, and or throw me a couple $100. So I just have to like just do all that. So it's like I don't feel like I'm getting shafted. Every once in a while, a smaller scene will just sort of do it without asking me, but. Recently, some scene wanted to do it, and the dude messaged me. I said it was cool, you know.
Yeah.
But some of them I've just let go by the wayside. But they're still going strong.
But that's the thing about you. You're just such like a fun-loving, kooky dude that you never thought to like, hey, I should like franchise this or patent it, because that's what happened with Roast Battle. The guy who started Roast Battle, like he like immediately made it his thing. So now that's why like there are so many like spin-offs of Roast Battles. Like the Comedy Fight Club and shit like that, where it's like...
Well, maybe you're right, but also... No, I'll tell you, like, I talked to my buddy Josh, my entertainment lawyer buddy, about it, and it was like, you can't, like, copyright or trademark a live show concept like that of, like, hey, I'm the only person who can bring a lot of people on stage, you know? So the only thing is, if I really wanted to do it, I have, like, proof of concept because of how developed the New York and LA shows are, you know? So it's a sort of thing where everybody knows that, you know, we came up with the show.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Did you know that? Did you know, Caitlin, that they came up with the show?
I did not until recently.
Yeah.
Until like 2 days ago.
But it's weird, you know?
I also feel like, but then if you can't, I feel like you could copyright live. I don't know. It just,
you can copyright the name.
Yeah.
The name, but I don't think the concept,
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
But, yeah, I mean, I've always thought of, it's always been the sort of thing where I'm like, oh, that's so cool. This is the thing that has sort of built and become this fun annual thing. But it's also the sort of thing where it's like, I don't want to put all my eggs in that basket. You know, it's a fun thing I'm proud of to do and everything like that.
I know. And it does create, it is more of like a contribution in the world of like, hey, now all these scenes do have this show that happens the first week of January around then.
Yeah.
And it's a good time. True. That is a contribution in its own right.
And it's all right. It's like, the folks that know that I was one of the people that was involved in getting the creek going, know. The ones that don't. Like, you know what? I don't care. I don't ever like if I go in there and people are talking to me or whatever, I never really bring it up.
It's a good, it's a good mindset to have, I feel like, in general, when it comes to like collaborative efforts, because you never know. And sometimes that shit can get ugly and people can become enemies over it. But if it's like, hey, look, I got what I needed out of it, which was the experience. And I know it opened up a lot of doors for a lot of people. And I'm still doing something like you are. You're still doing your thing.
I'm still a comedian.
It's like it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like you could now, because you've moved on, and no one got shitty. And you're luckily enough, you and Rebecca are cool.
Yeah.
So it's like a thing of like,
you
were able to move on and continue just doing you.
I mean, I'm the only remaining like sole like original creator of the show that's still part of it. But it used to be, honestly, when I was younger, like me and the co-producers used to get upset when all this industry would come out to it and stuff like that, and then we would be happy that our friends would get things out of it, but we were kind of frustrated that none of them ever really seemed to give a fuck about working with us.
I get really like, because I get really annoyed, and whatever. This is probably the kind of shit you're not supposed to air out on a podcast. But I don't care. But like, I get annoyed when industries like, hey, can we get on the list? It's like, you have expense accounts.
Everybody loves getting on lists. Everybody loves promo codes. Millionaires love to get promo codes.
Yeah.
For
but
shit,
it's like, okay, same thing. It's like, but like,
you're right. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's cool that you're coming. That's great that you've heard about something that. But we people who create these shows, it's like work real fucking hard to make them great. And it's like, you want 3 of your agents to come buy a ticket. You all have a credit card that is specifically for that reason.
Yeah, and you can write it off.
And you can write it off. Everything. And like, thank you for. It's awesome that you come. Thank you, but like, come on. Like,
No, you're right. They don't think about it like that.
Because there's a lot of times where
we need the money. They don't need the money.
Yeah.
They'll come to the show and maybe just like it's not what they thought it was, or it doesn't work, or they can't help you in any way, and they just enjoy it as patrons. Great. That $30 or whatever the 3 tickets would cost could really be used by the people at that moment in that time working on that show, creating that show, helping cultivate it.
And there was a critique you had that I think is legitimate, was that, fuck it, we're just going to talk about this. It's no big deal, I don't think. But it was like, hey, this is kind of like a shortcut for the industry. They get to just show up at this one show. They see all of these comics. Then they get to kind of pluck who they think they can fit into one thing. And then they don't have to go out to shows for a lot of the year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And they don't really go out anymore now because like A&R is dead because people can just watch stuff online and things like that. Like, it's interesting. This past year, maybe it was because of the date it fell on or something, but it was like, because like I don't even see it until like very end, but like my co-producer Sachi, who's wonderful, she
Oh, is it still Sachi?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sachi's been doing it for over 10 years now.
Good for Sachi. I haven't spoken to Sachi in a while.
Yeah.
She's great.
She does a great job booking it and stuff. But yeah, the industry list was pretty small this year. You know.
Well, I mean, it's
kind of like things are changing.
Well, if they want to come out and just enjoy the show, awesome, do that. I'm not dissuading them from being there, but like I also just feel like there's like this. I mean, but that's also right now the thing we are doing, talking into a microphone and recording into podcasts and the internet, and which is directly connected to the internet and YouTube and Instagram and now TikTok even and Twitter for a while. But all these things, it's like it's put the power back into the hands of the creators, of the comedians, of the artists in general. And it's almost like you can go around industry people now, the ones that aren't hip to it anyway. Because there are some industry people, some who are really fucking have their ear to the ground, who get it, who have their fingers on the pulse, who understand the trend and where shit's going. And they're like, no, I want to still help. I want to help. And I understand that it goes this way. And like, you don't even need me anymore, but hey, I can help you. And I want to help you, and I see what you're doing, and I want to be a part of it. And it's great, and I want to help you cultivate. There is that world, but then there are the people, the industry people, who still think that this is all a bubble and it's going to burst one day. And it's like, no, this is the new reality of entertainment.
Yeah,
we can put the internet is completely. I mean, this is nothing. Anyone who's listening to a podcast right now hasn't already realized.
Yeah. Well, now it's actually. I don't know if your listeners know this, but it's actually like legally required as a comedian that you have a podcast.
You have to. You have to. You have to you have to. Yeah. Like if you're a comedian, when you fly to another country and you're filling out your visa in the airplane, it says like occupation. If you write comedian, then it says name of podcast.
It's right underneath there. It's on the document.
You have to write comedian, and then it like appears.
Yeah.
It's Intelligent Ink. Name of podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you high, Caitlin?
No.
Okay, because you were high one episode.
I know.
You were high last time we hung out.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
How are you? Because can I ask you a question now?
Yeah.
Because you are new to edibles.
No, I'm not.
But you lately it seems like you like to have a good edible here and there.
Well, yeah. Well, I took a not drinking January, so I got more into edibles as a result.
How do you
in the spirit of sobriety?
In a month or so of edibling, how do you feel as far as like
what have you learned?
Is it the new you?
I enjoy it.
You know?
I like feeling sillier, but weed sometimes still makes me like too paranoid to interact with people.
Yeah.
So.
Have you learned anything through your third eye?
No.
It's so funny, dude. Like
my third eye's got pink eye.
There's still I know that I get it. Like I can't smoke weed, right? Like it turns my brain into insanity. But the humongous kind of culture and fun around and all the edibles now and all this stuff, all this huge fucking scene. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, I guess it's just none of that's for me. But that being said, I do like being around people when they're high. It's kind of fun for me.
Do you, is it like...
But if the reaction that I have on weed was what happened to the general population, there is no way it would ever be legalized. Like it wouldn't even be...
Well, what happened?
Yeah. I don't have the mechanism to remember that I'm high or on the drug.
Oh, interesting.
So that's fucking gone. So whatever's happening.
Seriously. So when you get high,
I just believe everything that's happening. Like,
really?
That's nuts.
Yeah. It's fucking really scary.
Right here, I just want to do a pause real quick. Because maybe our listeners don't know, but can we give them a quick injection? John F. O'Donnell is inflicted with mania.
I have bipolar 1 disorder.
Bipolar 1 disorder.
Inflicted with mania.
Great
it sounds like
title.
an old-timey, 19th century doctor's like, oh, I'm sorry to tell you, son. You're inflicted with mania. We're gonna have to,
doc, what do I do? We're gonna
masturbate.
Masturbate.
Okay, we're going to have to put these, we're going to have to put these depression leeches on you while you
that
masturbate.
sounds like the male equivalent of hysteria from back in the day.
Yeah, hysteria.
So you have, say it again, bipolar 1?
Yeah, they used to be called manic depression.
Right, okay.
Yeah, there's a classic bit I have about how I prefer the term manic depression to bipolar disorder because it sounds a lot cooler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I do like this. There's a Jimi Hendrix song called Manic Depression, which is really cool.
Right.
Because he had it. There's no song called Bipolar Disorder. That song would suck. And then I do the whole bipolar disorder.
Right,
song.
right.
Mm-hmm.
But you remember that bit? Vaguely?
I mean,
if not, it's okay.
Your bits are like they were written by a book writer, dense, and with many chapters.
Very self-indulgent. Very self-indulgent. That's my thing. But yeah, so I've had basically bipolar 1 disorder is there's bipolar 1 disorder, there's bipolar 2 disorder. Bipolar 1 disorder is that you'll have these manic episodes, these highs where you have this grandiose thinking where you get really egocentric and even get messianic, and then your thoughts are kind of really racing, and it can be exhilarating because at times like your intuition is really high and you're very charismatic with people that don't know you, but all the people around you start to see you as acting in a really weird way that's not like yourself, and you kind of alienate yourself from them, and then you sort of start acting really inappropriately, and you get really paranoid, and ultimately can burn a lot of bridges and kind of crash your life to the ground. And then that's followed by kind of a what goes up must go down sort of thing, and you get really, really depressed, like clinically depressed, and you kind of figure out a way to claw your way out of it, and then there'll be an extended period of normalcy where you try everything you can to stay well. And at times when I was younger, I wasn't actively trying to make myself not well, but I don't think I was doing everything in my power to make my mental health central to my life like I like to think I'm doing now. So I'm hoping that I can stay well for the long term now. I don't know. But yeah, that's what it is. Bipolar 2 disorder is more of the depressions with then, say, something called hypomania, which is known as it's kind of like mania light, which can actually be advantageous because you're kind of your alpha version of yourself, but then it can kind of cross a threshold. And yeah, it's...
Is that the more common of the bipolar?
I think it's more common. I do know for a long time that it was considered to be the less sort of severe version of it.
Right.
But more recent literature I've seen has said because those depressions can be really rough, that in a different way it is kind of equally difficult.
It like parallels type 1 and type 2 diabetes.
Does it?
It's not really, but I mean, because I know type 2 diabetes.
Well, it does in the respect
it is less
that
severe, right?
It does in the respect that they both have a 1 and a 2.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, I like to.
So you fucking nailed
But I thought that and I could be wrong about this, but I thought that type 1 diabetes is like you are born diabetic.
That is true.
Whereas type 2 diabetes, you sort of bring it on by
do it to yourself.
A lifestyle that
similar
you
to bipolar 2 disorder, you just get it from eating too many donuts.
Right. If you get that sugar high and then the crash right after.
Yeah.
No, obviously, if you have bipolar 2, you're born with it as well.
Yeah.
So bipolar 1,
also known as, for real, classic bipolar disorder. Which is
Classic.
classic, bro.
or infliction of mania.
Remember that time you thought you were supposed to go to the 50th birthday of that Hindu woman's? It's actually true. Do you remember that story?
You remember that time you show
Classic,
up?
man.
Remember that time you show up at your friend's very successful bar show in the East Village reading a Kurt Vonnegut book upside down and demand to go on stage?
Sorry about that.
That was kind of like, we're like, Johnny,
wait, you didn't put me up, did you?
Yeah, we put you up. Of course we put you up.
Was that, holy shit, was that 2012? That was like,
That
was not the terrible 2008 fucking thing.
The 2000.
No, because you didn't even have Cabin then, right?
And no, we did have two. We had it. No, okay, here's the thing. The 2008 episode with Johnny's episodes, we have. They're in years. Yeah. The 2008. Here's the thing about 2008. You just sort of disappeared. The 2008 one wasn't in everyone's. Wasn't as.
I went to fucking Ireland.
Right. Okay, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it wasn't as you were gone. No one saw it happen. You just were gone, and everyone heard like Johnny had an episode in Ireland. It was like, oh shit.
No, I was having an episode there already. Like basically in New York, it started in like ramping up in April, but like May, June, it was really rough. July. Don't you remember before I went? Was it before I went to Ireland? I was like had those like wine stained teeth at the creek, I
mean, if we're judging manic episodes by the alcohol stains on your teeth, bud, come on. No, yes, I do remember in 2008.
Wasn't that before?
Yes, I remember in 2008 you were eccentric, and there was a lot of like people were starting. There was a concern of like, man, Johnny's just Johnnying it up full force. But that was the thing. You were always such an energetic, big energy, like sort of outside of the box thinking dude.
But all of us were. It was kind of crazy times. We were partying all the time.
That's what I'm saying. So no one was like, oh, Johnny's off his shit until you went to Ireland and we all heard.
Oh, so wait. When I got 86 from the creek, was that after I got back?
That, in my recollection, I did not know you got 86.
I did. I was like, remember, I almost got in a fight with this big group at this table of like 12 downstairs or something like that. And I was wearing that like leprechaun T-shirt, and I was like screaming on stage and crying and shit like that.
Believe it or not, I think that was before. Yeah, that was before you went to Ireland. Because all I know is you went to Ireland and then you were just gone.
Well, I came back from Ireland somehow.
Obviously, you're here now.
I was in Dublin and Belfast and Edinburgh. I was supposed to do an Edinburgh show
with Eleanor Tiernan.
With Eleanor Tiernan, poor Eleanor.
Yeah.
Oh, you know Eleanor?
Yeah.
I mean, we're cool now, totally. But we were supposed to do a show together called Irish American, where we were going to share the stage in like one of the smaller venues in the Gilded Balloon.
Okay.
And that went to shit. But I was, there's that crazy story. I was in jail in Ireland for a week, all that stuff. And then I ended up coming back, getting home somehow. And then I was still in New York. I was somehow still in my place and was just really spun out and alienated from a lot of people. Who knows who I was hanging out with. I think that's when I started hanging out on that ferry boat in the East River and all that shit.
Hold on.
There's so many things that just happened.
Now I have pieced it all entirely together. And it's shocking because my memory is usually better than this. But yes. It was because I had been in New York. I remember it was roughly a year of me being in New York. I actually remember in 2008, I got New Faces, right? And the big JFL New Faces. And the big thing about it back then was just like they branded the idea of not telling anyone. They were like, you do not fucking tell anyone. this is supposed it remains a secret, and they're like, they don't make threats, but like you just heard like, man, if you tell people, they'll like pull it away from you. So I had gotten it, and I didn't fucking tell anyone except Johnny.
And the loose cannon.
And then like later Kumail. But like I told you, but I told you at a time when you were still fine. Yeah. And I was like, Johnny, I got to tell you this. And you were like very happy and cool and awesome. And then when you started like...
You were getting worried?
No, I wasn't. I was the exact opposite. I'm like, oh, no one will believe him.
It's even better.
But I remember I told Kumail, because I had told you, I told Kumail, because I was like, I also, you should know, I told Johnny, and because I remember him having the conversation, we're like, is he all right? And like, yeah, I think he's all right. I think so. I think he's all right. And then I was worried that he was going to tell people. I'm like, don't you tell anyone. And he's like, I'm not.
Well, I remember.
But he would also fuck with me like he was going to, because that's Kumail, we were friends. But also, I do remember, that the reason I bring that up, because I would remember it was right as you left for Ireland right before I left for Montreal.
Oh,
and you and I had a big passport discussion.
Oh, we did?
Because I was do you not remember this?
No.
It was the first time I ever got a passport, was to go to Montreal in 2008. You had passports before, and you like informed me of things. Because this was also why it was hard to tell that something was wrong. Because we had a passport conversation, and you were like, you can get expedited. You have to do that. You have to get expedited. Blah, blah, blah. And you just rambled off all these things. I was like, okay, thank you. Yes, I'll remember that.
It was helpful information?
Helpful. Yeah, that was the thing. Even when you were, even
in I'm not just like spewing out nonsense.
You would ramble on about fucking Vishnu, but then all of a sudden...
No, remember I got obsessed with fractal geometry?
That was what did it. Wasn't it it was a documentary about fractal Yes.
There's a couple things, though. There's a couple things. Yeah. One, because you brought up Kumail, who I haven't connected with in a really long time.
He's doing pretty good. He's doing all right.
I feel like he's doing all right. But I remember calling him and like being like, we got to talk about fractals. I remember just like ranting at him for a long time.
Because his amazing partner, Emily.
Yeah.
Emily, I remember talking to her. She was like,
well, she tried to get me to a doctor.
Yeah, she tried to help because she was she had psychiatry background. That's right.
She did. Or psychology.
Therapy, yeah.
Therapist
background.
And she was working with this one particular doctor, who I'm sure is a great doctor, but was like one of the only guys that was like, let's not go to medication right away or whatever. And I was like, I'll go with him, Dr. Polk. And then I went and had a meeting with him, and like I was super manic, and it was a very confrontational thing. But
I remember something Emily telling me that was crazy.
Oh, I think I know what you're going to say. That weirded me out when you told me that. You only told me that a couple years ago.
Did I?
The smell thing?
Yeah. She was like, when certain people are experiencing certain episodes, there's a smell.
Whoa.
I don't know if that's a thing, though. Maybe.
She was right, though.
You remember it?
I don't remember, no. But I also, it was not, like, she had clinical... Is
it called BO? Because maybe I wasn't showered?
It could be that. But she also, like, was very worried. I remember her being, like, very, like, we have to help John.
That's one of the things that breaks my heart, is making other people worry. It's something that like it's like wounds inside me, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but anyone who because I do remember. I'll say names of cool people like we just did, but there are a couple fuckers who I don't want to bring. I don't want to drop their names. I don't want to be fucking angry about it. But who not a lot, but a couple people who like turned their backs on you after that first episode, and it was like, he can't fucking help it.
Yeah, I guess there's a lack of compassion or empathy.
He can't help it. You think he wants to freak out?
But you know what?
And live on a boat with a band? You did do that. You lived on a riverboat.
Well, it was a decommissioned ferry boat that was in the East River.
Oh, the East River. Okay.
Well, no, it was right under the Pulaski. So it was like the Pulaski East River, right? And these random dudes owned it or somehow, and they would throw these techno Eurotrash dance parties, and I would help them like clean the boat, and we'd be smoking weed, and it was a fucking mess, and you know what I mean? And at that point, like everybody had moved out of my apartment, but I was still there somehow. I like changed the locks and da-da-da-da. It was a mess. And then, but the thing is, I think what actually happened was earlier that year, we did that New Orleans festival, right? That you put together.
There was in 2008. Yes, I did I brought down 25 comedians from New York and 5 comedians from LA that I knew, And we all went to New Orleans on our own dime to do shows at this one venue, and it was a great fucking time.
It really was.
It was stressful, but it was great.
Did you know about that?
This was before we'd ever met. 7 years before I'd meet Caitlin.
It was really,
6 years.
really fun, man.
Yeah.
And my birthday corresponded with when we were down there, and I was hanging out with a girl, and she was like smoking a joint, and I was like, this is because I had this thing for so long still that I was like angry that I couldn't do that. You know what I mean?
Man, yeah.
And so I just remember this. I don't even know if I told people about this, but I think I smoked a little bit, and maybe that just sort of started things going, and then cut to like a month later, I'm really kind of like
Well, also
ramped up.
right before New Orleans, I can't remember if it was before or after New Orleans. So I don't remember the exact dates of New Orleans, believe it or not. And I'm pretty sure it was after. I mean, before. You had also done Bridgetown.
But that was cool. I was fine there.
So that must have been because I remember
That was March.
That was March, because I did Bridgetown the next year when word had broken that Johnny'd fallen off the rocker.
Yeah, and I
people,
wasn't at
but
that
all
one,
these
right?
people who were at Bridgetown were like, is John F. O'Donnell okay?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know.
I made
don't know
it
where he
good.
is.
Yeah. That first year was really fun. I was the only East Coast comic, the only New York comic there, and so people didn't really know me. But once they got to know me, we all got along really well. I remember one of my sets, like a bunch of comics like lifted me up over their shoulders, like like triumphantly, and like walked me to the back, like Ed Salazar and other people. It was really cool.
That's
but
awesome.
it was really fun. And that's when I met James Adomian. We had this fun thing, you know, and it was cool.
Yeah, it was okay. Timeline wise, I'm remembering now. Yeah, it was 2008 summer. Then you went to Ireland. Yeah, then it was after you came back, and you were around for a few months, and that's when you were just completely.
Well, what
out of
happened
it.
was, like, I believe it was my aunt somehow got somebody from like somebody from some sort of New York public employee of some sort that checks on people's competency, or I don't know. But they came to the apartment, and I let them in, and they kind of like had an interview or kind of conversation with me to see what was going on, if I was okay. And who knows what I was saying to them. But then
Was this the Long Island City apartment?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And then cut to some days later or soon thereafter, like some sort of like, I guess it was like police / EMT or something kind of came in, and they like took me out of my place, and they wouldn't let me like get anything or anything like that. And then ended up in a hospital. I was in Elmhurst Hospital, which was pretty gnarly place. Like I was up on I think I was on the 11th floor, and for some reason it was known as like the
Where is it?
it's in Elmhurst, Queens.
Oh, in Queens.
Yeah,
okay.
and so I was in there, and it's like, you know, it's a public hospital. Who knows? Maybe it's gotten better, but at the time, where the floor that I was on, it was, you know, you're basically, a lot of these hospitals, you're like kind of like sleeping on like a glorified gym mat. They don't really have sort of mattresses, and there's like, you know, the sheets and pillows. None of that stuff is comfortable. You're around, you know, a lot of people who are in rough shape, so that's not a fun experience. Oftentimes, not always, but often, I have enough experience to be like, oftentimes, not always. The food is not great, all that sort of stuff, and you know, but that particular floor was known as the Asian floor because all of the people that worked there, like the staff, were all of these like Asian women who were immigrants and were just like screaming with thick Asian accents, which is like very not conducive to relaxing. So everybody was like, oh, you got to go here, go here, go here. I was like, this is just total misery. By the time I got in there, I was coming down from being manic. That always seems to be how it happens. But when you get into the hospital, at least for me, I'm like, oh, now I'm not manic anymore, but I have to like just live through the pain and shame and like of staying at this hospital now, and like realizing, oh, look at all this crazy shit I did. All right, we're gonna have to figure out.
Do you think it is like the aesthetic, like the hospital itself that triggers?
I think it's a sort of thing where I think it's in part just the timing of it for that particular episode, but also I think that it is being put on medication, and that's starting to kind of kick in. So it's a sort of thing where the best way to get somebody who's like acutely manic, meaning in the throes of it, off being manic, is to give them some like the second wave of antipsychotic medication is known as atypical antipsychotics. They say atypical because the side effect profile is supposed to be considerably reduced than the first wave ones. They still can be really gnarly for a lot of people. Different people respond differently, but it's the sort of thing where they'll often give you that for a course of a number of days, and then a different type of medication that can be like a maintenance medication for long term. That being said, some people long term are on some of these. So I think that, to be honest, is part of it. But then just because you're just sort of like back, they don't just immediately always necessarily like let you out. So sometimes there's times that, that was really rough. Like I went there by mid-November and I didn't get out until sometime into January. Yeah. So I missed all those holidays and everything. It was just really, really sad. And it was an incredibly rough time. I was super depressed. And that episode, because I was manic for so long, and I was manic for like 8 months. That is crazy. That's that's very, very, very long. Yeah. And it was because I was just like drinking a ton of wine and smoking a ton of weed. It was just kind of kept the fuel of it going. Yeah. It's nuts. And then I was so depressed even when I got out of the hospital that it was like, that was so difficult for me a lot of 2009 until like well into, I would say into the fall, where I was like, okay, now I'm going to move in closer to New York with my uncle and my grandmother. I can get public transportation in. This is going to be tough, but I'm going to try to start coming back around and, trying to, reintegrate with comedians and make some amends and do some stuff. And also, I'm going to just address all of this head on as a comedian. I'm not going to brush one speck of dirt underneath the carpet. And I remember, there's a couple of things I remember. I remember that doing that kind of forced me to become a better comedian and try to figure out how to make personal things funny. Mm-hmm. Like I looked back pre that episode of the stuff that I did. I don't think I was like, a terrible comic before that, but none of this stuff was viable, that astronaut bit wasn't going to hold up. But there's a second thing before we get into that. There's a second thing I want to say. Something that I always remember is that, Sean was living in Bushwick, and Sean was so supportive of me when I came back, and he would hang out with me all the time, and we'd be together when I'd be writing and stuff like that. And he would look over my scripts, and it means a lot to me. He's always meant a lot to me.
Yeah, bud. Come on.
I didn't expect to get emotional there, but no. But it's just good podcasting.
Well, yeah, and just so that people know, that all happens when you smoke indica or sativa.
No. Wait, no. You said something about like earlier about trying to just maintain mental health. Like, what do you do to keep that at bay?
Well, now I basically, unfortunately, the last episode that I had was started in the February, March of 2019.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't get to tell you about all this stuff. Shit was been crazy, dude. Like what I've come back from, it's like crazy. So like, this is what happened.
Okay.
I had an episode a couple of years ago, and basically,
I remember that one because you did the classic when Johnny's having an episode thing. It's when I get a phone call from him at 6 a.m. or earlier. Mm-hmm. Between 5 and 7 a.m. It's like, why is Johnny calling me early? Fuck. Mm-hmm. And I immediately text Rebecca every time. I'm like, Johnny's calling me early again. Whenever you wake up, please call me. Mm-hmm. And I answer. Anyway, but you didn't call me this time.
No, I didn't.
No. God damn it, because you're on to me.
Yeah. Long story short, I was basically, before this episode, I was trying, under the care of like this UK specialist who specializes in bipolar disorder, and getting clearance from my psychiatrist and talk therapist and family, I wanted to try this holistic alternative treatment plan. So it wasn't completely an alternative to medication. It was basically because the amount of medication I was on before that, I was just really, really out of it. Basically, I could just barely function to kind of like do my job, and then I was completely self-isolating in DC. It was really rough. But it's hard to parse out if it's like chemical depression compared to actual depression of what's going on in your life, or maybe it's both. Because I don't want to get into this, but that episode blew up a really important relationship to me. But so I was just scouring every place to try to find any possibility of anything that I could do to not feel like this. And so this treatment is it's pretty substantial and rigorous, and I was doing everything. But basically, instead of lithium carbonate, which is the traditional medication for bipolar disorder. There's a different version of it that's in the dietary supplement world called lithium orotate. It's just a different sort of chemical.
They made it sound
compound.
exactly the same.
Well, they're both lithium. It's just instead of like the
Orotate
carbonate molecule, it's the
Yeah.
orotate something or other, right? And the thing is, the claim on this, and I think it does help some people, the claim on it is that it has less elemental lithium in it, but it's more bioavailable across the blood-brain barrier in the orotate form compared to the carbonate form. So it doesn't have the side effect profile of lithium carbonate, but it's more bioavailable. And then you take these other things to help with the bioavailability, which is a number of different kind of like, vitamin supplements and things like that. So that's just one part of it. Another part of it is initially you have to do all these brain relaxation techniques and meditation to like make sure you know how to kind of like transition yourself from the sympathetic nervous system state to the parasympathetic nervous system state. Then there's also like a low inflammation diet is an important thing because apparently there's as many neurons in the gut as there are in the brain, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
And so you have to have your like omega-3 to omega-6 ratio proper or something like that. So the best way to do that is to be vegan. So I went full fucking vegan. And then also HIIT exercise. High intensity interval training is really important for BDNF, which is called brain-derived neurotropic function or something like that. Okay. So I'm doing all these exercises all the time. I'm doing yoga, and also you have to like sleep in total darkness is really important. So I had like blackout blinds, all my windows, all of this.
Wait,
sort of
why?
stuff.
So that you can just fall fully.
It's better to fall asleep. And it's like it's better to cultivate like
good sleep.
Or like melatonin or something. And then so I was doing that. And I'm doing all of these things. And I will tell you, just the idea that like there was this light at the end of the tunnel, that even if I had to do all this shit, if I could do it, like I'd be able to be whole and not just like kind of like get by, but actually like thrive, was the little bit of like hope I needed to kind of motivate me to do all this shit. And I lost about 25 pounds, you know what I mean? Like I was like feeling really good, but I was still really sad. And then I had a very good talk therapist in DC, and then it wasn't until like well into December of, I guess this would have been December
2018?
No, this was December of 2017.
Okay.
That I could finally say, no, 2018, 2018. That I could finally say like, oh wow, I don't feel depressed. And I was like saying it with like tears of joy, you know? And then this is how fucked up it is. It's like, I then started doing some shows. I hosted 50 First Jokes in New York and LA. They both went really well. And then cut to like a month or so later, I'm starting to spin out. And by March, it's a fucking disaster. I'm getting like...
What triggered the spin out though? Because I've noticed that is always a pattern.
You know what?
There's some event, something stress related usually that causes you to either smoke or drink or to hang out with the wrong person or something. It always seems like there's some event.
Yeah, but this one...
That just sort of...
This one, there's nothing that I can put my finger on.
You think it was just a buildup of...
I think what it was that, because he even said, like the guy that I was working with, he's like, look, this works, this can work, but it's possible for some people like that have a version of the illness that maybe it doesn't. I just don't think that it worked for me. But it was very difficult because after the episode before that, one thing that I would constantly say to my therapist was like, I don't have another one of these in me. Like the depth I'm like trying to find to just like cultivate the fortitude to keep going here is like really, really tough. And so I was like, I just can't have this happen again. And then it fucking did. And it was sad because certain friendships that were really strained in DC, like amends were being made for those, and then it spun out again, which is like, it's just like, and they're okay now, but it was just rough. But somehow, and then somehow a bunch of crazy shit happened, and that's a whole other story. But somehow, to answer Caitlin's initial question, where I am now is that I'm back on traditional medication, but an amount that I feel like for me, if I live in a very healthy way, I can tolerate well and feel creative and feel socially engaged. And I'm in a very good place creatively right now.
Good. Yeah.
And I feel really healthy. So basically now it's a combination of traditional medication and a number of those lifestyle things that I just told you guys about. I've sort of combined both of those things. So I'm still eating very healthy. Actually, I'd say I'm 98, 99% vegan for almost 2 years now. And, I'm doing yoga at least 2 to 3 times a week.
Oh, cool. You look stretchy. You look more flexible.
I look bendy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just trying to do all of those things. But it sucks because 2 episodes ago, it blew up a really important relationship. This past episode, essentially is why I lost my job on Redacted Tonight, this political comedy show that I was on, and I was really bummed about that. But that being said, I'm incredibly excited to be kind of putting my creative energy towards cultivating comedy around mental health issues and stuff like that. I feel like with my stand-up is what I can contribute more uniquely. I think with this new podcast I'm doing, that I think that's something that can build a community there. I mean, so
what's the new podcast called? You told me about it.
It's called Take Your Pill, Psychopath.
Yeah. Which is what
Great
you're told. What's what you're told when you have to take a pill every day.
Yeah, and it's also it's a line for one of my jokes. But but it's also. I mean, it's called Take Your Pill, Psychopath, and the log line is the comedy podcast that exploits mental illness for personal profit. So,
I mean, there you go.
I like it. I like it.
So basically that's where I'm at. A lot of crazy shit happened. But you know what's nice about it? I have so many stories of stuff. I don't even have to come up with jokes anymore.
Actually, when I was in jail in Ireland, there were so many moments.
I'll just tell you this real quick.
You look back and you realize you weren't having episodes. You were writing.
Yeah.
Research.
I was living the art.
You were living it's a specific type of writing called life writing.
Yeah. First episode, and it's funny. Lee Camp, who I worked with on that show, who's still a good pal. We were doing shows, like some comedy shows in Seattle or in Portland or something like that. And something came up and I was like, oh yeah, that reminded me of this one time when my first Manic episode in college, I saw this flyer that this prominent woman in the Hindu community was having her 50th birthday party. And I was like, oh, I'm supposed to go to that birthday party. So I kind of like...
college, Ann Arbor, Michigan, right?
Yeah,
University of Michigan.
And I guilt tripped my friend Heather to let me borrow her car, and she did. And I drove to I think it was the Dearborn, Michigan, and I walk into this Hindu temple, and it's just a whole bunch of Indian people dressed beautifully, like to the nines. And I'm in there, and I'm so overwhelmed with emotion. I see her and her family all kind of dancing up on this raised platform. I just go into the middle of the room, right, like in front of the platform, and I just take off my shirt, and I go into this bridge pose. I'm in this bridge, and this guy comes over to me and starts tugging my arm, and he says, like, you can't do that, you can't be here. And I go, like, whatever the woman's name was, I go, like, she wants me to be here. And he just sort of backed away. And then after that, for real, she invited me to sit down and eat with her family. And she goes to me, I believe that Krishna sent you to me as a gift for my 50th birthday.
What?
My insanity validated. Her insanity validated.
Crazy.
Yeah. And then I go to Lee. Lee goes, you forgot about that?
Maybe you were supposed to stay with that woman, bro.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be her like personal person.
Yeah.
Her Johnny.
Yeah.
Ask my Johnny, and you just be there, dressed in flowing robes, just like love. That's the answer.
But how crazy is that? It was like a total validation for the whole trip.
Well, in terms of crazy stories, we should probably get to
good
this
transition,
one.
Caitlin.
Yeah, we're good. Johnny, you've told us so much. And I know there's a lot, like, people listening are going to be like, wait, I need to know more about this guy, more about these stories. Trust me, he's going to talk about him on his podcast on Take Your Pill, Psychopath, and his stand-up. Yes. And I get it. Like, save that stuff for the stage because it's going to be some crazy.
That's all good.
But I will say this before we get to the story, that, like, and I mean this, like, you're a guy who, I've said this before numerous times. You're a dude who, on stage, when you are at your full fucking, like, when you're Johnny 10 on stage, when you're at a 10, you're incomparable. Like, no one can touch you. It's like it is almost like watching a cartoon come to life when you're up there being like Johnny, like, in comedy. It's like it's something that is worth. Anytime you've seen John on stage and he's just rambling and you're like, what the fuck is this shit? Wait till he gets to the point. And then you're like, oh, that's brilliant. And you're hilarious. Like, you've always been the guy who, like, when you kill, it's not even fair. It's one of those things of like, whoa, Johnny just fucking, it's like watching a superhero do a superhero thing.
Well,
you have a very big, like, you have an ability just like, whoosh, and you're just this, suddenly you're 8 feet tall and glowing on stage.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you saying that to me, Sean, gives me chills up my spine, to be honest, because
Well, thank you, but this is not a 69 session because I want to lead to this now. So one more thing, and then we'll get to the story.
No, I was just gonna say, like, the way that you phrase that is like very complimentary, but also could be potentially interpreted as like when you're manic on stage.
Oh no, not manic. Not when he's
Yeah.
manic. Not when he's manic.
no,
Because-
that can be very hit or miss.
Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes
got
that can be like a miraculously sort
Yeah.
of funny from the energy and riffing, but it can be very hit or miss. You know,
Okay, so you know that
No,
he's saying.
I'm
like,
saying
when,
I'm saying when Johnny's totally himself, totally
Yeah.
sane. Well, nobody's totally sane, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
When you're healthy and you're on stage and you're fucking
Prepared
killing it,
material.
Yeah, when
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
like
yeah.
when you're at your best on stage, it's fucking
Well,
brilliant.
well, that's like a lot of the problem with sort of the manic, the crazy highs and lows is like a lot of times people want to go into the crazy high. It's a lot of musician friends because they feel like they're just feeling things more
Right.
and then they're better writers, but
you can be.
you know,
It's like
dangerous.
writing. Yeah, I feel like you could be equally as great of a writer, healthy and sane as well.
I think better. to be
Better
honest.
writer, yeah, better
I don't-
writer.
I don't subscribe to that.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah,
the,
someone who's actually experienced it numerous times too.
Yeah.
The
like
torture
the real
genius
version of it.
thing,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. You don't have to be tortured to be a genius.
What were
But-
you saying about 69ing?
Oh no, Johnny. So in 2010, they don't. I don't know if they broke up or not, but
What if this is the episode
no.
where we never get to this?
no, we'll get to it. In 2010, I just want to tell this story because I think it's fucking hilarious. There was a sketch group called Murder Fist. I do not know if they are still together. I know all the individual members are doing one. The one you would know the most if you're a podcast fan is Henry Zabrowski of
Last podcast.
Last podcast on the left.
Yeah.
Him and Ben Kissel. I don't know if
Marcus did.
Yeah, Marcus Parks. Marcus. They weren't in the group. Henry was,
Well, Ben. Oh, you're saying
Yeah.
in Murder. Ben was not in Murder Fist.
but he was like friends with them all.
Oh, sure.
And like hung out with them, and now they have this awesome podcast. But
Yeah.
there was a sketch group called Murder Fist, and they were doing this thing in 2010 where they were throwing roasts for people, right? And one of the members, Ed, who now writes for Jeff Ross, right?
Sure.
Ed Larson, love the dude.
He's great.
He approaches me. He's like, "Hey, we want to throw you a roast."
Oh,
And I'm
this
like,
is the fucking worst.
yeah. I'm like,
You fucking monster. I can't believe you turned your
hold
roast.
on. So I'm like,
This still bothers
I'm
me.
like, I was
love it,
like,
though.
I don't want to do a roast. I do not want to fucking do a roast. And Ed was like, we're doing it. I don't give a shit if you want to do it or not. We're throwing you a roast. But in a fun, persuasive
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
So him and I like together make up the dais. We like choose friends. And like Norman hosted it. You know, Neil Stastny, Jesse Pop, Ben was on it. Henry was on it. Sean O'Connor.
Yeah.
Remember Sean O'Connor? I mean, he's doing
do.
extremely well out there in
do.
LA, writing for numerous shows. Johnny, you were on it, obviously. A bunch of people
Chesley
were on
was on it.
it. A bunch of people were on it.
Oh, I
But I
remember
remember
this
being
story.
like, I still, and I mean this, I still had this sensitivity towards you. And like, I just had this thing where I'm like, there doesn't need to be a fucking endless amount of Johnny's crazy jokes. Because one, it's just fucking hacky at this point. But two, it's going to inflate his ego too much if people are talking about him the whole time. So I remember.
Oh, I didn't know the first part. I only knew the second part you just said right
it was
there.
protective. It was like half like, we don't need to all fucking.
Well, that bothers me more.
What? Really?
Yeah, you had to protect me from being roasted. You guys roasted me. It's
Well,
like I
this is the
can't.
thing. Well, that's the thing. Oh,
No, but I meant the Creek
oh,
roast. Yeah,
that roast
was cool.
That
this
roast
is
was fun.
really cool. Timeline-wise, I should say this first.
Yeah.
So when I came back after that crazy 2008 episode and was really depressed in 2009 and then sheepishly tried to come back, like to the point where I lost all my friends' phone numbers and shit like that. And I remember I was like asked Sean for his phone number and you told that to Emily and then she cried like because it was like I was like missing. It was like that's how disconnected I got from these people that my extended dysfunctional family of comedians, you know? And so I was sort of slowly reintegrating, but the place that I was way too shook and 2, like, filled with anxiety and ashamed to go back to was the creek in the cave and to reconnect with Rebecca and stuff like that. And so, like, I waited for like so long about that, and it was just really this rough thing. But what's so cool is that the comedians decided, like, no, the first time you go back to the creek, we're going to do a roast.
We did the John F. O'Donnell roast.
So it wasn't like I had to kind of limp back in there. It was like, no, we're going to have you come back in here. We're going to tear you a new asshole.
Exactly.
Which is the fucking coolest thing ever. Which is such a comedian thing.
That's how roast.
That's how roast should fucking be. It shouldn't be like you get some celebrity.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That was before.
That was the real.
That was
shit.
pre my roast.
Yeah.
And I was on that dais, and we all went to fucking town on you.
And we were smoking inside and everything.
Yeah, we all just
real quick. But that just reminded me, like, that move as a community of comics. I remember when we had first met. Yeah. I don't know if I knew this comedian. Some comedian had died, and Sean was like, "We're gonna go to this show because my friend died." And I was like, "Okay, this is weird." And we went, and it was just like it was at Entertaining Julia, the bar where that show is held
in Chicago.
And everyone just did this comics jokes.
Oh,
and everyone was just
wait. Who was that?
I don't remember. I didn't know who it was, so I will have no recollection.
2014. Who died? I mean, people die. It's like crazy how many fucking comedians.
But it was just like it was so beautiful and fun because people were like crying, telling the jokes, laughing, like roasting them. Like
I feel like
such
a fucking asshole because I cannot remember who that. I can't remember who that was.
I don't know if you were super close to them though.
I know. Yeah.
I think you were just in town and you were like, yeah, I'll go support. But that was like a very comedy community move.
Yeah,
celebrate
totally.
Yeah, it's like celebrate each other.
Yeah, sorry.
But it's okay. That's a good story. But like,
so then your roast.
For my roast, I email everyone on the dais. I'm like, hey, no one do a joke about Johnny. No one write a joke about. No one acknowledge Johnny at all on stage.
Oh God, it's infuriating.
And when he has an outburst, and he will, just pretend like it's super awkward, and we all move on.
You fucking freak!
And
how did you even come up with the idea to do this?
Because
I know,
because when you are healthy, you are an attention based life form.
I was more of an egomaniac 10 years ago. I'm doing better.
Like, there's maybe I don't remember the exact number, but hypothetically, let's just say it's 11 or 12 people in dais. First 5 people go and they roast everyone. Oh, that was the other thing. I was like, make sure you write a joke about everyone except Johnny. So make sure everyone gets in it. And they were bop, bop, bop. Everyone roasted everyone, skipped Johnny. Sean O'Connor had the most vicious one where he roasted everyone on the dais except Johnny and then roasted like 3 comedians who weren't even on the dais. Got like 3 people who were just hanging out.
Sean, my old arch nemesis.
Oh, dude, that one was so good.
I forgot about that.
So good. I was like, oh, he took it next level.
Me and Sean were like frenemies.
By like after like the 7th person, Johnny just, as predicted, just explodes out of his chair. If someone doesn't say anything about me soon, I'm gonna freak out.
That's what's funny what's so crazy about it is like I knew what was happening, and I knew what I wasn't supposed. I knew, but I still couldn't fucking help myself. That was the craziest part. And I remember I saw a note card on the floor. Like one of Chesley's notes cards, and like half of it had somebody else's name with some jokes written, and the other one just said JFOD, and then nothing was written underneath it. And I was
hope that must have been planted.
I think that if that were a Chesley Calloway plant, that's fucking brilliant. But then I remember the best part was I
forced my way up there, kind of.
Well, you
kind of let me, I guess.
The plan was, hey, we're gonna pretend like we're skipping him when the roast, but we're not actually gonna skip him because he's gonna say something. Predict that he did. It's like, but when he gets up there, I don't care if he says the funniest thing you've ever heard. Act like it fucking bombed. Just no matter what.
Is the audience all in on this now?
By this point, they definitely
nobody laughed. Like I was doing these jokes. I'd be like, that was a good, you know what I mean? It was just,
and I remember at one point,
he turned his roast into a roast of me.
And at some point, Rojo Perez sitting up front, and you now halfway through your set, and we're all like, but you got to understand, like, we're all just pretending not to laugh. The audience is dying.
Yeah.
Every joke Johnny tells, that gets a laugh, but we all don't react. So the audience is like, they're not laughing. Wait, what is this? And at one point, you look at Rojo, I remember, and you go like, Rojo, you remember when you were up here during my roast and you bombed? And Ro goes, like you're doing right now.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just like, oh, this perfectly
Oh
timed.
my God, I totally forgot
Rojo
about that.
wasn't even on the
No, I
dais,
know.
and
Yeah.
he got one in.
Oh,
So wait, it was
man.
so awkward for me. I tried to throw Rojo under the bus. Oh, it's so
Because
shitty.
you had been trying to throw us all under the bus, and we're all like,
And then
"Yeah,
Rojo fucking nailed me.
nah, man, you can't throw us under the bus. We are the bus.
We are the bus.
We're driving it.
But dude, Sean fucking made.
but it
Sean
was a
made
good- it
this
was a roast.
about me.
It was a
yeah.
roast. You got
It was
roasted.
great. No, it was great. That's a fucking great story.
No, it was fun. Speaking of great stories,
There we go.
There we go.
Johnny, can you tell us? Can you tell us another story of yours in only 5 words? Wrote them down for you.
Yes. Here we go. Tulsi, Goofy, Beast, CNN, 75,000.
Ah, a number, which is a
Our
word.
first number.
Our first. All right. Well, our first number not written out as a number, but 75,000 as when if it were a number that would be 5 words in itself,
True.
or no,
No,
3.
3.
But this is as a number, 1 word.
Yeah, I hope that's
Perfect.
kosher.
No, it definitely is.
Yeah.
I forget that you're Jewish, Johnny.
Yeah, Leibowitz on my mother's side.
Yeah, I forget that you.
I don't,
Yeah,
I don't get any of the Jewish
until
clout.
you. So this is actually this is actually something I kind of know. You told me about this maybe during an episode or something, but like you don't remember. But I know when you were coming up before you ever started doing comedy, your big thing was like mascot. You wanted to be like a big fucking circus / sports mascot / for hire. You just wanted to dress up in a costume and entertain children and old people alike. But you're Johnny. You're a creative soul. Right, so you can't
true.
fuck around, and you're not gonna be a mascot that already exists. You're not gonna be a Mickey Mouse. You're not gonna be a fucking Donald
That's
Duck.
true.
So you invented your own mascot, Tulsi, the Oklahoma squirrel. Right. So
Well, Oklahoma is known for their squirrels.
well, also Tulsa,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
is in Oklahoma.
So it's a
So
cute
you
little
made a
Tulsi.
cute little Tulsi, the Oklahoma squirrel, right? And you enter in Jersey. You grew up in Jersey, in New Jersey. There was a mascot competition.
Yes.
You enter it.
Yeah.
You enter it.
Yeah.
And
As Tulsi, the Oklahoma
as
squirrel.
Tulsi the Oklahoma squirrel.
Right.
And you're like, I'm the fucking best mascot. Like, I'm gonna dominate this thing. And you do.
Oh, yeah.
Like you're
Flips.
beating out all the competition. Yes.
You
Flips,
smoke
backflips,
Mickey
you do
Mouse
an
gets
aerial.
smoked. You
Yeah.
take down Donald Duck.
And then it gets to the final round, and it's between you, Goofy, and the Beast from Beauty and the Beast. Not technically a mascot,
But
we
hey, you
love
know
him.
what? It's all reimagined. So now, now this shit goes global, and fucking CNN comes in to cover it because they're
Covering
like,
the finals
well,
of the
they're like,
New Jersey mascot
and it's
competition.
also because it's like it's Goofy. Disney loved Goofy, one of the OGs. Beast, hot Disney character as well, and this unheard of Tulsi, the Oklahoma squirrel.
Yeah.
So it demands media coverage from the best in the biz, CNN clearly. And
The problem is that you're clearly the front runner. Like
You're
you're
smoke- you're
clearly
whooping ass,
everyone
dude.
loves an underdog. Obviously, the
An
other two are already under squirrel.
if you will.
The other two are already established. But the problem is that like CNN can't let you win against Goofy.
you
and
can't.
the
Goofy and
Beast.
Beast can't lose to
Oh,
an
it's like
unknown.
an establishment thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh.
So
So under the table, they're like, all right, we're gonna give you the prize-winning money, which is
75 grand.
75 grand. But in order for you to be quiet and like, well, we're
You
gonna
had to
crown
throw.
Goofy, but like, you can have this money.
well, you had to throw the.
Well, that's
competition.
crazy. I signed a non-disclosure agreement about that 75K. How did
Yeah,
you
I
guys?
know.
Well, you know, we do our
anything can
research
happen
here.
during an episode.
But
so.
we also know that you used that 75K to move to New York, and that's how you started doing stand up.
Yeah.
They were like, if they won't let me be the mascot,
Yeah.
I'll take the mask off.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
shit.
You know, and
Yeah.
that's how you started stand up.
And for all you listening out there, if you have anything less than 75K, you can't possibly afford to meet me.
No, you need 75K minimum. Yeah.
And that's the story. Did we nail it?
Well, it's pretty close. I'm gonna say it's a real tomato.
What's really
situation.
interesting is like based on your life, that's like more believable than some of the actual shit you've been through.
Yeah, that's like a 2. You know what I mean?
It's
Yeah.
like boring in the book of Johnny.
Okay, so You guys want to hear my version?
Yeah, the real version.
Tell
Yes.
the real story.
Okay, so, all right. Tulsi Goofy Beast CNN 75,000. You guys know who Tulsi Gabbard is?
No.
Okay.
Tulsi Gabbard?
Gabbard, yeah.
No.
Okay,
Good
she
name.
is a congressperson from Hawaii who was and still kind of is actually running for the Democratic nomination for president.
Oh.
Obviously, she does not have universal name recognition.
Yeah.
But she is very popular with a certain faction of the left, like people that are really strongly anti-war and stuff like that. And her domestic agenda is very progressive. She's pretty much like aligned with, say, like a Bernie Sanders or something like that. Right. And she's really liked because in like the last election, she was kind of vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, and she. It turned out that she saw that they were really fucking over Bernie Sanders, so she spoke out against that and resigned and stuff like that. So essentially got excommunicated from being this rising star in the Democratic Party because she's a woman of color and she's a veteran and shit like that. And so then basically she became this kind of like more marginalized figure, and now she kind of is running. But
Is she from Hawaii?
Yeah.
And she's a veteran.
Yeah, she was a medic in
That's
Iraq.
pretty. I mean,
Yeah.
those are things where you're like, these are the kind of things you want in leaders.
Yeah,
Not
totally.
not coming from $1 million loans from their dads.
Exactly. I mean, she's a flawed candidate for other reasons. There's a lot of shit. But anyway, that's just a little bit of backstory, okay? So anyway, Tulsi Gabbard, when I'm manic, one of the things that I do that a lot of people do is you spend money recklessly. Like one thing I did was...
Fuck, am I manic?
Like one thing I did, like because somebody posted about it on Facebook, I donated $1,000 to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which I'm glad that...
I mean, that's a good...
Yeah, I'm glad
So
that
you
my...
mean responsible?
Well, that one happened to be.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad that my manic money went there. I didn't invest like $1,000 in an asparagus-flavored Pop-Tart or something like that. But after that thing, though, I gave that $1,000, and then to the National Suicide Prevention
Hold on a
Lifeline.
second. I can't let this go. Johnny, did you actually invest in asparagus-flavored Pop-Tarts?
No, I was saying.
Okay, the way you said that, I was like, wait a second. Did you do that while not manic?
Sean, there's clearly a hole in the market there. There's a gap in the market for vegetable-flavored Pop-Tarts.
All right.
But, so I donated that $1,000 to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, but I was manic, so I completely forgot about it and only realized months and months later when I was super depressed and unemployed and could really use the money. And I can't think of anything more ironic than my charitable contribution making me want to blow my brains out. Okay, but
I mean,
actual irony.
That's
beautiful.
It's the actual.
I mean, dude, that I mean, what are you, a book writer?
Nice. Look at that callback for that one. Okay, so I also donated $1,000 to Tulsi Gabbard's political campaign.
Okay.
Because she's the most stridently anti-regime change war candidate, and because we're supposed to be together. Right. This is what I thought at the time.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Wait, is she a younger candidate or?
She's like the same age as me.
So
she's like 37, 38.
Okay, yeah.
She's like, and she's pretty soft on the eyes, you know. Plus, like, she does videos of like she does like high intensity interval training. I do high intensity interval training.
Okay,
you know?
yeah. There's a lot
She's
there.
Hindu. I like to pretend I'm Buddhist. You know.
You were sent by who sent? Which Vishnu? No,
I was sent by Krishna.
Krishna. You were sent by Krishna.
Yeah,
you guys.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you guys are. Yeah.
She surfs. I think serving school. It's fine.
Yeah.
But so
you
anyway,
fought in your own war.
Yeah, I fought my own war in between my ears. So if you donate $1,000 to Tulsi Gabbard's political campaign, guess what happens?
She comes hang out.
Well, a little less cool than that, I guess, but but still interesting. You get a phone call from her mother, Carol Gabbard.
What?
Carol Gabbard called me on the phone
Yeah.
from Hawaii as I'm like ramping up and getting manic, right? And she called me to thank me for the donation. And you can donate however you want it under whatever name. You can put whatever name and occupation. So I donated as Goofy Grapes, and
Goofy.
I donated as Goofy Grapes, and then for my occupation I put Redacted Tonight. So she had to call me, and she had to be like, "Hi, is this the this person who donated under Goofy Grapes?" I was like, "Yeah, this is John F. O'Donnell." Yeah. And we ended up talking on the phone for like 40 minutes. because I knew like everything about Tulsi Gabbard's like political history and her campaign. I was like, Carol, I can't believe the way the mainstream media is treating Tulsi. I mean, come on, it's ridiculous. She's a veteran. She went over to Syria on a fact-finding mission and saw that the CIA was arming and training all these terrorist groups like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and al-Nusra. She then came back and tried to introduce into Congress the Stop Arming Terrorists Act, which didn't even get out of committee. It's crazy. And now the mainstream media is trying to paint her as being some sort of Putin apologist and sort of like Assad apologist. I can't believe what CNN is doing.
CNN.
And then Carol was like, I know, it's crazy. Like she was totally
typing to other people like, gotta get off the phone with this guy. Like,
no. But actually the opposite.
Like, we gotta hire this guy.
No, but she was like, you're right, John. Because all that stuff is like, she's like, yeah, I know. Because that was not our last conversation. We talked on the phone at least 4 more times after that. Whoa. And yeah, sure, I initiated all of those calls. But she always answered, and like our rapport was undeniable.
So give me a timeline though. What was this, like 16?
No, this was like February, March of this year.
Last year, 2019. Oh, this was most recently.
Of 2019. Okay. This is as that episode is happening. And so this is what was going on. In my manic mind, part of the reason that I was donating was because these articles were starting to come out that was trying to paint Tulsi Gabbard as being a Russian asset. Like they were trying to extend Russiagate to Tulsi Gabbard because she was anti-regime change in Syria, and Bashar al-Assad is like an ally of Vladimir Putin and stuff like that. But the truth is, there's people on the left that don't want Bashar al-Assad to be removed from Syria because they realize, and I agree with them, that who would come and fill that vacuum of power would be either ISIS, Al-Qaeda, or al-Nusra, because they're the ones that are fighting against him. So it's weird bedfellows for us as Americans, the American government and the American military, because we're kind of fighting both at the same time, but are actually kind of training, or actually legitimately are training those terrorist groups. We're not anymore, but in large part because of what she went and found. So anyway, they're trying to paint that, and I'm getting really upset about that, because I'm like, wait a second, that's bullshit. You know, I work on this political comedy show called Redacted Tonight that I'm really proud of. That being said, it is primarily funded by the Russian government, whatever. You know, so then like the joke is, it's like, wait a second, I'm part of that Russian propaganda machine, and this is not what we're doing. You know what I mean? So my whole thing was like, okay, I'm going to make this donation, but I'm going to plant like a seed, like a little breadcrumb trail, that if some hack journalist decides to take a deep dive into who's like funding the campaign, they're going to like find Goofy Grapes, and then they're going to find that it's Redacted Tonight, and they're going to see like, you know, who's the cast members. Then they're going to see that I have all these hashtags of Goofy Grapes, because that's been like a recurring sort of thread of this weird sort of alter ego sort of like throw people off my course alias that I've been using since like the 2008 episode. I don't know if you remember any of the Goofy Grapes stuff when I was screaming out Goofy Grapes and fractals and all that stuff. So this Goofy Grapes thread has been around for a long time.
Yeah, and when you read the name Goofy Grapes, you immediately don't think fake person. You immediately like, clearly child of eccentric parents.
But the actual origin of
Sonoma Valley.
Anyway, the actual origin of Goofy Grapes is some character that a friend of mine played once on stage 13 years ago.
Okay.
And it was a different time, you guys. So the only way that he can be described for real is like as a retarded hobo. I mean, you can't do that anymore.
Oh, yeah.
But I get it. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. That's the only way you can describe him. But so anyway, I'm doing all of that stuff. And then I'm thinking that like, okay, so that's going to like nip this like Russiagate, like red baiting of Tulsi like in the butt if any kind of journalist tries to see what happens. So then I totally forget about this. I really spin out. I have more conversations with Carol. It's getting really weird. Like our rapport became that we would sort of check in. I would check in with her. I'd be like, how you doing, Carol? You okay? Like, I'm sure you're stressed out with your daughter running for president. And we would talk about how like Tulsi did on her CNN town hall and how she did on her like Colbert appearance and stuff like that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And then it started getting weird because I would be like, is Tulsi like seeing anybody, Carol?
Oh, you started going through the mom.
I thought like we were supposed to become this like power couple. And she was like, yeah, she's married. I'm like, to who? She's like, Abraham. I'm like, the king of the Jews, typical. And I didn't say that. But so then I was like, oh, have you seen my stand-up comedy special, The Manic Depressive Chocolate Fountain Operator? She's like, no. So like, I'm like, yo, you should check it out. So I texted her the link and the promo code. Everybody loves promo codes. And then next time I talked to her, I was like, did you watch it? She's like, I watched some of it. Like, maybe it's not her cup of tea.
Yeah.
So then I really spin out, and this is too much to get into, but I'm in and out of jail a bunch of times. I'm in the hospital after jail eventually. I'm in St. Elizabeth's Hospital in D.C., which is actually where John Hinckley Jr. was for a long time. That's the dude that tried to, that shot Reagan and stuff like that. So that sucks because, like, I'll never even be the most famous person that was in that hospital. Not even the most famous person named John. So that's fucked up. But so then I get out of the hospital, miserable, all this stuff, right? End up having a conversation with Lee. Now this is like some months later. I'm talking maybe like May. He's like, hey, do you want to hear how you became part of like a national news story for a couple of days? I was like, oh God. And he's like, yeah, some journalists from the Daily Beast went and looked at all 75,000 individual contributions from Tulsi Gabbard and found 3 that were vaguely connected to Russia and wrote an article about it. And that article, versions of it got picked up by Rolling Stone magazine. George Stephanopoulos talked about it on Network News and by Real Clear Politics. And I think it'll be more funny for one of you guys to read it than me because I pulled up the article. And I want you to, well, no, not the whole thing. Just read I would say just read the title and then the first 2 paragraphs.
All right, here we go.
Hold on, the pop-up just...
It's okay.
It's super quick.
Okay.
I do it.
Tulsi Gabbard's campaign is being boosted by Putin apologists. Hawaii Representative Tulsi Gabbard's campaign for the Democratic presidential nomination is being underwritten by some of the nation's leading Russophiles. Donors to her campaign in the first quarter of the year included Stephen F. Cohen, a Russian studies professor at New York University and prominent Kremlin sympathizer, Sharon Tennyson, a vocal Putin supporter who nonetheless found herself detained by Russian authorities in 2016, and an employee of the Kremlin-backed broadcaster RT, who appears to have donated under the alias Goofy Grapes.
Goofy Grapes.
I made it into this Daily Beast article.
Oh my God.
Daily Beast, British newspaper, right?
No, that's an online publication of just of bullshit. Here's the one other paragraph if you want to read that one.
All right, I'm going to read this one. Gabbard also got a $1,000 contribution from, quote-unquote, Goofy Grapes, who listed his or her occupation as, quote-unquote, again, comedian, and employer as Redacted Tonight, a current events comedy show on Russian state-backed broadcaster RT. That show's host, comedian Lee Camp, told the Daily Beast that the person who made the donation is no longer an active member of Redacted Tonight, and separately... It is company policy not to donate to political campaigns.
So it did not have the intended consequence
Yeah.
of ending the red baiting of Tulsi, because I don't know if you guys know, a couple months later, fucking Hillary Clinton in an interview basically accused Tulsi Gabbard of the same thing. Like, so basically the thing that I was saying actually did come to fruition. And like, so my manic machination did happen, but it didn't end the red baiting, but it did contribute to me getting fired. So, but it's like, and then so what was cool is I was able to then pivot and just follow my real dream of becoming a squirrel mascot.
I mean, truthfully, I wish we would have just told both of those stories back to back and let the audience choose which one was the real story. Because like I pointed out, that shit's crazy,
Actually,
Johnny.
we should just do a segment of this podcast that's just you coming back and telling a ridiculous story and then them figuring out which one's real.
We'd have plenty of material.
I mean, well, I know.
Isn't that crazy that it's actually in the article, dude?
That is fucking crazy. Yeah, Goofy Grapes, dude.
Man.
You did it.
But how shitty, these journalists are so crazy. They so want to make this Russiagate narrative so massively huge. People are making careers off of this thing, of this Russiagate. So this guy is like not even at all being like, wait, is something weird, like not saying at all, like kind of ridiculous this person put Goofy Grapes as their name, you know? But this is how nuts it gets. I got a phone call from somebody from like the head of, recently, within the past month, from the head of Tulsi's like fundraising campaign. It was a phone call from the guy asking me, saying, hi, is this Goofy Grapes? Completely deadpan, me being like, yes, asking me for more money.
That's
asking
so
me if I could max out my donation by giving another $1,800. Because that's the most an individual can give is $28.
Yeah.
When you first started the story and you were like, you know, when I have my manic episodes, I am irresponsible with money. I thought you were going to say that you donated $75,000.
Yeah.
Oh, if I could, I would. I can't,
I also thought it was going to gear up to like when you getting out of the hospital and Lee going, hey, so about the 75,000 of like redacted tonight's money that you that you embezzled and donated and bought roses for
everybody in the state.
No, for Tulsi specifically, trying to win her over, John. Apparently,
there's another thing like
this is the adventure of John F. O'Donnell.
Mm-hmm. But I'm working on that. I'm going to turn that into probably that'll be like a 10-minute story. That'll be a bit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like and listen to once again the podcast is Take Your Pill, Psychopath.
Yeah. There's a bunch of episodes.
The special you already have. You just said the name of it though, but
it's called the Manic Depressive Chocolate Fountain Operator.
Yeah, and you'll see why there's a chocolate fountain involved. I know all these stories, but you should hear them firsthand.
Can I tell you tell them where they can get that?
Absolutely.
Okay,
please.
Cool. It's right now. You can see the whole thing on Vimeo on demand. The website is just go to jfodcomedyspecial.com. That's JFOD comedyspecial.com. And for your listeners, I'm going to give you guys the promo code. Capital JFOD, lowercase special. So capital J, capital F, capital O, capital D, lowercase special. You can get it for free.
Oh, badass.
Cool.
And that's also...
Everyone loves a promo
code.
Everybody loves a promo code.
Everybody loves promo code. Wait, what is it? You're just in your other... do you have another website that's just like touring dates and stuff? What's the stuff you're up to?
Yeah, all I ask you guys is if you download the special, regardless, I ask you subscribe to the podcast.
Listen to the podcast. All the stuff that he's not telling us, all the stories, he's like, that's too much to get into. You're going to hear them on this podcast.
It's on that.
And you want to hear it. You want to listen to these things. I've known Johnny for 13 years. He is, listen, aside from mental ailments aside, he's a wonderful person and just a fucking fascinating human being across the board, and his heart's in the right place, man.
Yeah, I give a fuck
about a lot of things.
I do, and I think that there really is a saving grace for me to be able to be a comedian to process all of this stuff. And I think there also is, because when you're a comic, it's like, you could get away and say shit that you can't say in other sort of jobs, right? So the fact that I can use the fact that I get to do comedy to talk about this stuff, and if that connects in any way, I can't think of anything else I'd rather do with my life.
Yeah, man. And look, mental illness is something that year by year we're talking about more and more, but still not enough.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people are dealing with stuff.
A lot of people. Everyone.
Yeah.
We all deal with something.
It's like I say, and
it's part of it.
I don't think that I have a monopoly on mental illness or mental health issues, but if mental illness were a game monopoly, let's just say I'd have hotels on Boardwalk and Park.
You damn right would. 3-4-star hotels.
Nothing crazy. But also, if anybody's interested, I finally released an album of mine called Live from Outer Space Volume 8 is available and streaming on Spotify and stuff.
Yeah, listen to these things. Check them out and go to the podcast. Follow where are you at on the socials?
Oh, everything is at The Real JFOD, at The Real JFOD.
Yeah, follow the man. Become a fan. And you will hear from him and us together in the same recording session again.
I hope so, yeah. I really, really love you guys, and I'm so happy
to
be
back
here.
all day.
Okay, thanks, bye.